On today's episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking a lot about London Fashion Week. Not only something I overheard at one of the shows I attended, which was kind of funny, but a lot of the media and press coverage coming out of the week, which I think we need to discuss, alongside a couple of other events and collections that have been announced this week, and an interview with a celebrity, which I definitely think needs discussing. So let's get into it. Firstly, welcome back to my podcast REFASHIONED, and if you're sitting here watching this on YouTube and you're confused, then I don't blame you. Not a lot of people know that I have a podcast because I haven't really done a lot of native content on there and I'm really bad at promoting it. But it's something that I want to start doing more of, beginning with these kind of videos where it's more of a chat and discussion rather than throwing facts and figures and TikToks at you all the time as in my other videos. I've actually had quite a lot of people reach out asking whether I do a podcast because they want to bring me along on their commute or their daily walk or whatever. Right now, it's only available on Spotify, but I'm hoping to release it to a couple of other channels very, very soon. So feel free to go follow me on Spotify right now, or you can keep watching them on YouTube if that's what you're watching on right now. But anyway, let's get into the episode. So if you follow my Instagram, you'll know that I attended London Fashion Week Thursday last week, which I had a really good time at. I actually went to 2 shows and I rented a dress from By Rotation specifically for the shows, which was really nice. It was my dream dress from Realisation Par. And I attended the Oxfam Vinted Runway, which was an amazing experience. It was really cool to see all secondhand looks going down the runway and looking so stylish, like looking not out of place for a runway show, if that makes sense. The stylist that did the show did a really good job of being really inclusive and really exciting with secondhand fashion, because obviously that is that public perception of secondhand not being as glamorous as, what brands are bringing out. But I think this show definitely showed that that's not true at all, if it ever was. The second show I went to is the one I want to talk about what I overheard when I was in my seat. It was basically in this beautiful old church in central London for the brand House of Taman. And the brand's show concept was basically introducing a dress that they'd actually previewed in their autumn winter shows for 2024. So 6 months ago, they'd showed a blank dress that over the course of the next 6 months they would be embroidering tiny little flowers. It was a really interesting concept, basically about slowing down and appreciating craftsmanship in fashion. And I really enjoyed the show, which basically started as a lot of models in their underwear walking through the church, past the crowds, past the cameras, just holding like a blank sheet up. And then after maybe like 30 models had paraded past everyone in the crowds, the main dress that had been subsequently embroidered by so many beautiful flowers walked past, and it was gorgeous, and the dress itself was really flowy, and it was just this really like nice atmosphere almost of waiting for the main event, waiting for it, and then it not disappointing. And basically the model came up to a podium that had been placed and just stood there for I want to say half an hour, this poor model, whilst people were encouraged to come up and stand really close to the dress and look at that detail for themselves. And I think, again, it was a really nice message of appreciating craftsmanship in fashion and also giving the idea that we need to slow down. We don't need to be seeing so much clothing all the time. Like, this one dress was enough for the designer to be showing. But the people behind me were not that happy with the concept. They seemed bored. Maybe it was because the show was pushed back and delayed by 40 minutes, 45 minutes, I'm not sure. They were pretty crabby before it even started. But at the end of the show, they were definitely expressing their disappointment that it had only been one dress that they got to see, and that for about 10 minutes the show had just been models walking past with white sheets, and it was, not much to take in. And I just think it's so interesting how different people reacted to that kind of show. I know high fashion is art and we all interpret art in different ways, but it was quite funny for me to be experiencing this show and really enjoying the concept of it, and then to hear people behind me complaining almost at the same time. But anyway, I really enjoyed my London Fashion Week experience. I think I did the best thing possible, which was to just go to 2 shows that were really focused on sustainability and basically ignore all the other shows which are just pushing new designs constantly. But other than the shows, something I definitely noticed when I was moving around London last week, and I've since noticed headlining all of the press media, is the obsession with bag charms in street style. And I think this was like quite a native TikTok trend that has been picked up by designers, and I can see why designers are so excited and going all in on them. I mean, it definitely links to the video I recently did about fitting your personality into an airport tray and trying to be sold a personality online. I mean, for brands, this is literally a way to sell consumers something that is supposed to be really, really personal, but definitely isn't. I mean, Miu Miu, which is a brand I want to talk about because of how well they've jumped on trends recently, is literally selling a bag charm made out of leather, a gold chain, and a rope tassel for 450 British pounds. Who is buying that charm? Who is buying any bag charm from a designer brand to try look effortlessly cool? Which it's not giving. I mean, spending £400 on a bag charm is not effortlessly cool. That is very curated, I'm trying too hard cool. But even though luxury brands have definitely jumped on this trend, you've also seen a lot of high street brands and fast fashion brands like Zara also trying to jump on this charm trend. Because from the brand's perspective, it's so easy, right? You just have to put a bit of leather strip on a chain and, bingo, you've got a £30 charm from Zara. It's so much easier than trying to sell a top where you have to worry about material and durability and stitching and design and all of these things. It makes complete sense for brands to be jumping on this trend and selling you tat and making pure profit. But I just don't get why people are buying into it. Like I said, Miu Miu has definitely been jumping on a lot of trends lately. I would probably call them the luxury fast fashion brand. And what's really surprising to me is that their efforts seem to be paying off. I mean, at the start of the year, they were named one of the hottest brands on the list index. And it seems like everywhere I look, people are talking about Miu Miu. They're buying their stuff. They're, talking about how they've jumped on this latest trend or this latest trend. I mean, I've mentioned on my channels about the cowboy hat they brought out near Beyonce's album, and the brat green that very timely coincided with Charli XCX's Summer, even though it was later decided that they'd already invested in this color before the album. But what I don't understand is who their demographic is, who their customer is. Because jumping on trends and trying to, follow TikTok is a very fast fashion approach to business. And the reason fast fashion brands can do that is because they're creating cheap clothing for a consumer who wants to buy into that 5-minute trend, and they can be trendy for as long as that style sticks around, which is often a month or 2. But who is buying £450 bag charms for a 5-minute trend? Anyway, a couple of other trends that I've definitely noticed in my little corner of Southwest London, and also, going along to a couple of the Fashion Week shows, is a really niche one actually. People wearing crew neck sweaters with the USA flag on them. And literally I double checked with my boyfriend when we were on a walk once, because 2 people walked past me wearing the exact same jumper in a half-hour period. And I had to double check with him that it wasn't the same person that had walked past and switched color jumpers. It was insane. They both had the exact same style, but in a cream and a navy. And then I saw a man also wearing the same sweater like the next day, and I just could not believe it. I mean, obviously I know niche trends exist in this way, but it was just kind of jarring to like see 3 people in the space of 24 hours wearing a very specific jumper. Maybe I'm not aware of a viral jumper that's, been trending recently. I don't know. But another trend I saw was skinny jeans. And skinny jeans are definitely being pushed by the media that's come out of London Fashion Week. Everyone's saying they're back on trend and they've been coming back into fashion for months now. It's not something I'm going to be exploring. I mean, that was in my teenage years, and the thought of going back to really restricting jeans, it's just not for me. I'm going to be listening to my gut here. Which basically is just saying stay away at all costs. But I think it's so interesting the way that I thought skinny jeans were never coming back into fashion, and like everyone was saying it, but there was no way it was going to translate into real life. Like most people do not like skinny jeans. But that was definitely disproved by Fashion Week last week, and just going around London, there were so many people wearing them. And Godspeed, if that's your style, go for it. But it is always crazy to me how cyclical fashion is and how trends always come back into style, even when I think they're the worst trend in the world. One thing I definitely wanted to mention that I've seen recently is people calling second-hand fashion the hottest trend right now. I think because of all of the second-hand events that have been happening during Fashion Week this September, like the Oxfam runway I attended, there was an eBay one in London. There's been some similar events happening in New York, and I'm sure will be happening in Paris too. So I definitely get that secondhand is potentially picking up traction, and this is what the headlines are trying to convey. But calling it a trend does not sit right with me, because it feels very dismissive, right? It feels like it's in fashion right now and will eventually go out of fashion. In order for secondhand to really take off and become more accepted, we need to be treating it like the next stage of fashion, like the future of fashion, not as a trend that brands can be jumping on and, jump off when the next thing comes along. It's definitely a hard line to walk, because I do think that treating secondhand fashion as the latest hot thing would encourage brands to invest in it more and encourage people to see it as, cooler. But at the same time, reducing it to a trend does not seem to convey the importance and the concept of it, I guess, of secondhand as part of a solution to our fashion industry that the trend cycle directly feeds on. Someone said something similar in my latest video about being sold personal style, that TikTok is making personal style the latest trend in a very macro way. You have all these little trends that point towards developing your personal style, but right now, fast fashion and trends are out, and personal style and listening to your own thoughts is in. What else was happening during Fashion Week? Oh yeah, there was this collaboration between Roxander, which is a British designer, and George, which is Asda's fashion line. And I wanted to quickly discuss it. I've covered the issues with supermarket fashion in a video on my YouTube, which you should check out if you're not sure about why supermarket fashion is so bad and how it relates to the fast fashion industry. But today I want to talk about this Roxander collab and how it shows that supermarket collabs with designers really are just a waste, in my opinion. You might not know Roxander, but you will probably have seen their clothing. They've dressed stars like Zendaya, Kate Middleton, Anne Hathaway, and they're really known for, I guess, their quiet luxury in the way that you don't really know who the designer is, but you can see that the quality is really good, the materials are really good. And recently they did a London Fashion Week show where the styles coming down the runway looked amazing. I mean, they're runway quality pieces. They're made from really great materials. But To be having this show in the same week as they released their collaboration with George just feels like almost a mistake, because the comparison between the two is so blatant. When you look at the runway show next to the George collection, it literally looks like another designer entirely. This collection has got a lot of good press saying you can get access to Roxander cheaper, but a lot of the collection is just, in my opinion, not from this designer. I mean, for one thing, it's very heavily polyester, and for another, the collection is very focused on athleisure hoodies, when the items you'd most commonly associate with this designer is more high fashion, coats, suits, that sort of stuff that people like Kate Middleton would be wearing. And I just think the disconnect between the two is just not helping anyone. I mean, why create this clothing? What is the purpose of it? I mean, one magazine I was reading that was talking about this collection said it was the definition of affordable luxury. But what is luxurious about polyester and hoodies? Looking at these collections side by side, you just would not think they were designer hoodies. And to be fair, the proceeds from the collection are actually going to charity, which I didn't realize when I first saw it. But wouldn't it have been better to donate that money to charity and not create this clothing which, you know, doesn't really have a purpose in the world, in my opinion? The clothes start from £14 and go all the way up to £60 for a trench coat, I think. And I wonder if it would have just been easier to just donate that money to charity. I mean, I know it's good PR. I know I'm basically asking capitalism to not be capitalism, but I don't think you can frame this as good for sustainability, especially considering overproduction is the biggest issue in fashion, and anything that's contributing to that problem is a problem itself. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Okay, final thing that I wanted to mention before we wrap this podcast up is Chappell Roan coming out to say that she wouldn't do a collaboration with a fast fashion brand. And I think she specifically mentioned H&M here, which is really interesting because obviously they're currently collaborating with Charli XCX, and that was a whole thing, and I covered it on one of my other videos earlier in the month. I just think it's really nice to see a pop star have integrity like this and say, you know what, hold on, even if the money is insane, I'm not going to collaborate with a brand that doesn't work with my morals. I think this is a dying concept in today's media. Everyone wants their bag, and I do respect it, but I do also think that collaborating with such a big polluter like H&M is, you know, one of the worst things you could do, maybe bar like a Shein collaboration. And the headlines I've seen coming out of this Chappell Roan news have all been about how the pop star's stance on anti-fast fashion could harm brands. Like literally this was a headline I saw, I think from like Business Insider or something. Maybe their tagline was like, experts think that this could hurt H&M and other Gen Z fast fashion brands. And it's like, who cares? Who cares? I know it's Business Insider, they're doing it from the point of business, but like, who cares about how the brands are going to feel and the consequences to them? I think it's nice that Chappell Roan is joining the likes of Billie Eilish about being really vocal about being sustainable where you can and caring about collaborating with sustainable businesses. I don't know much about Billie Eilish's sustainability policy, to be fair, but I know that in her recent video for the song Guess with Charli XCX, they were like sitting on a mountain of panties, and they ended up donating those panties to a charity called I Support the Girls, which I think is a non-profit that provides donations of used bras and underwear and sealed sanitary products for girls and women and anyone basically that has a vagina that's experiencing homelessness. And I think that's really nice. I think that's a really nice way of collaborating with a charity in a meaningful way. I do kind of wonder why they needed to buy 10,000 pairs of unworn pants for their video. I mean, was there another way they could have visualized this in the first place? It feels quite overproduction-y, but because they're going to charity, I think it's still a really nice idea, and definitely those donations will be used. So yeah, I'm not mad at it. It's maybe a little bit excessive, but yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts here too, whether you think that was a good move or not. I guess it's a grey area and maybe no one's going to be right about it, but it's interesting at least. Yeah, anyway, I need to wrap this podcast up because my iPhone storage is going crazy. I'm having to get a new phone actually because my old phone is like 4 years old and I've never had an iPhone die so quickly in my life. Normally I keep them for a good like 6-7 years, but this one is just conking out and I'm not sure why. So I'm going to be upgrading to a new phone anyway because it will have better camera quality. But yeah, this one's really annoying me. So thank you for sticking to the end of this podcast, and I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you like the podcast format. It was fun to just chat to you guys sometimes and go a bit off script. So yeah, I'd appreciate any comments and feedback on this format, what you think I could be doing better or what you like. And yeah, have a lovely week. I'll speak to you really soon. I have a video coming out Sunday, so you'll hear from me really soon. Bye.